Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this podcast, I'm going to explain about antipathic medical treatment as explained by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann in aphorisms 55 to 60. So let's get started. So in 55th aphorism, it is explained that soon after the introduction of each of these systems, that means in the previous aphorisms, generally the allopathic and homeopathic treatment was explained. Methods of treatment. After these methods of treatments, the public was persuaded that adhering exactly to the system only increased and heightened patient sufferings. So, in simple words, the popularity this antibiotic treatment has gained is just because it provided instantaneous relief, and due to that reason only it has gained so much of popularity and importance in patients. But if followed up and if understood in a proper way, especially in the chronic diseases, that initial palliative or say the initial instantaneous relief was actually followed by a much more trouble, which was not actually explained by the physicians as well, and which was not also in the minds of people because obviously they were not aware of that. So one would have long since abandoned these allopathic physicians if it were not for the palliative relief obtained at times from certain empirically discovered means whose almost instantaneous flattering action was conspicuous to the patient. To some extent, this bolstered the physician's credit. To put it in simple words, why allopathic system is so much popular right now, because of the instantaneous relief it provides like within no time. That is the only reason most of the people are like, it is a majority or say the major treatment system that is existent all over the world. It's because of this reason only. And in 56th aphorism, it is explained that this palliative or antipathic or enantiopathic method was introduced 17 centuries ago, following Galen's teaching of contraria contraris curenta. By this method, physicians could still most certainly hope to win the trust of patients by deceiving them with almost instantaneous improvement. How fundamentally unhelpful and detrimental this mode of treatment in diseases not running a rapid course, that is important. That means Hahnemann specially, satirically commented that how this instantaneous or palliative treatment was actually damaging patients' health, especially in chronic diseases, not in the acute ones, because acute ones are generally really well, very well managed, or sometimes are, only the conventional or say allopathic system of medicine is the only way to control that. Like when a person is suffering with blood loss, we can't expect to give homeopathic medicine and expect the body to prepare itself, produce new RBC and etc., because that's utter nonsense. We will definitely try to transfuse the blood lost, like we are trying to compensate the stuff that is not available in the body. So that is exactly what happens in antipathy mode of treatment. So allopathy is not exactly antipathic, but most of the antipathic principles can be found in allopathic system of treatment. So that is what in these coming aphorisms explanations are very clearly given about them. So let us look into that. So in 56th footnote, it is explained that there are those who would like to create a third application of medicines against disease through isopathy, as it is called, namely the cure of present disease within the same miasm. But even granted that one could do this, since the miasm administered to the patient would be highly potentized and consequently changed. So most of the people generally get confused with isopathy and homeopathy, because it's clearly evident that in isopathy, something which causes the disease is directly given to the patient and expected that the patient becomes better. But in homeopathy, there is a process called as potentization or dynamization, wherein the diseased particle, or say the nosode or sarcode, whatever it may be, the principal medicine or say the medicinal substance which is expected to cure the patient is generally mixed with a vehicle. That may be sugar of milk, that may be alcohol, or whatever it may be, depending upon the nature of the medicinal substance. So it is generally potentized or reduced into a very harmless substance, and in fact something which is capable of producing health also. But in isopathy, generally the stuff which is so much dangerous to the person is removed from the ill patient, and it is given to the person already already suffering with that. So it is definitely not a good or say safe mode of treatment, and definitely isopathy is not at all similar to that of homeopathy, and that's what he tried to explain. So again, he said that they differ from one another in many respects, namely in that cowpox has a more rapid course, and it is gentler, and especially in that cowpox never infects the human being through proximity. So in this, there is an example given that in homeopathic mode of treatment, in treating the smallpox, cowpox extract is taken, and then that is potentized, and then it is used for treatment. Whereas in as per isopathic terms, generally that smallpox viral stuff is taken, and again that is given as treatment method. But that doesn't happen because there is a lot of difference, because cowpox is able to treat like in through the homeopathic system of principle, because it's much gentler, and especially in that cowpox never infects the human being through proximity. So it's definitely similar to that which causes the disease, but it's not the same which causes the disease. Like cowpox virus, or say the extract from the cowpox infected being, is very much similar to one that gets affected with smallpox, but not the same stuff. So it's clearly explained again that widespread inoculation with cowpox so effectively put an end to all the epidemics of the deadly terrible smallpox that the present generation has no vivid conception of that former horrible smallpox plague. In this way, to be sure, certain other animal diseases will present us with medicinal and curative potence for very similar important human diseases, happily supplementing our stock of homeopathic medicines. But wanting to cure a human disease with identical human disease matter is going too far. Nothing results it from it but calamity and aggravation of disease. So this is explained in 56th footnote. Coming to 57th aphorism, it is explained that antipathic treatment focuses on a single disease symptom, bringing forth a medicinal symptom which is opposite to the disease symptom. So, some of the examples include administration of opium for pain, diarrhea, and insomnia. That is very much clear that opium is a very, very strong painkiller. So, it's given for pain, and it is given when there is excessive diarrhea and when there is sleeplessness to induce sleep as well. And purgatives for constipation, that means which increases the bowel movements, are given for when person suffers with constipation. And cold water is applied for burns, and warm baths for coldness, and wine for debilitation, etc. So these are some examples. This is clearly evident through these examples, because even you guys just think over, when we take a warm bath in a very cold winter, we feel good for very some time. Again, when we come out of our bathroom, again we tend to shiver a lot more because of the external weather. But that is something which is explained through this antipathic mode, like it's palliative for some period of time, but again the complaint will get back to its normalcy. So that these are some examples which seriously even I've observed this one. So coming to the 58th aphorism, some of the faults are explained. Like faults in the antipathic approach include only a small part of the whole disease is treated, only symptomatic, the whole disease is not looked, like it's systematically divided, like headache is there, so give this some kind of painkiller. And if the person is having some rheumatic complaints, then give some other kind of painkiller. And if the person is suffering with some other kind of health issue, BP or sugar, like give them the respective antagonistic treatment. So that goes on. So that is what is exactly happening. So, after a short amelioration, antipathic treatments produce an aggravation of the whole disease. So, in the 58th aphorisms also, so other writings about the aggravation resulting from antipathic treatment are explained. Coming to the 59th aphorism, how the aggravations may be present in the antipathic system are explained. Like when coffee is given for daytime drowsiness, generally people tend to have this habit of drinking coffee to avoid to get, not to sleep during their work time and everything. But that results in much more deleterious effect, because the person suffers with insomnia if the caffeine load gets onto the body, and the person may even suffer with lack of sleep, which he was actually trying to prevent during the daytime. The sleep was, he was trying to prevent himself from falling asleep during the daytime, but that will be continued for a longer period of time, may result even him, I mean, he can't get sleep when he's expected to sleep as well. So that will be those are the harmful effects of this antipathic mode of administration of medicines. When opium is given for insomnia, similar effect is expected. Opium for diarrhea, when it is excessively given, the person may end up having constipation. And from for various pains also, when it is administered, there will be a kind of complete loss of sensibility for pain, which is also a dangerous phenomenon again. And opium for nocturnal cough, and cantharis for weakness of the bladder, purgatives and laxative salts for constipation, wine for protracted debilitation, and bitter and hot spices for a weak and cold stomach, warm baths for chilliness and lack of vital heat, cold water for burns, and so on. So these are some 16 examples given in this 59th aphorism, like how antipathic treatment examples, through some examples it is explained. Coming to the 60th aphorism, it's given that when these ill effects are countered with stronger and stronger doses of antipathic medicine, a more serious disease or sometimes even death may result. So because that's absolutely true, when you see a person suffering with diabetic, I'm just trying to give some example. So when you take a person suffering with diabetes, in the beginning of the disease, only certain amount of medicine was able to get his sugar levels into control. But as the disease progresses, that dosage increases, and it raises to such a point that the tablet form medicine can definitely don't have any kind of effect on that person, and again he needs to take insulin in the direct form, and that too, like in the form of injections, and directly intramuscular injections are given that. So you can actually see how the body is growing much more weaker and weaker. Like in the beginning there was just only the depletion in the production of insulin, but that went to such an extent where there is completely absence of insulin production in the body. That is the reason externally the person is taking insulin from external sources. So this is the way the progression occurs when someone gets to just treat according to the half knowledge of the disease, not exactly getting into the root cause and what habits are making the person to end up in such a way. So it's this is the exact thing that is currently happening, and this is the reason we need to rise up to the situation and let everyone understand like why they need to understand the root cause of the disease, and that is the thing which actually needs to be treated. And in the 60th footnote, it's like a very very big footnote, and absolutely it's a very important stuff, because in this Browsie's techniques are explained. Like Browsie's it's a kind of treatment, again antipathic treatment. Browsie's system of bloodletting, warm baths, and food deprivation are explained. Like when a person suffers with some kind of blood dyscrasias, generally the person is completely cut, and the blood is completely left out to be oozed out from the body. Like see, such were the very much baddest kind of treatments. Of course that is not exactly happening right now, but something like that is only happening. I would like to give a small example, though this is becoming a lengthy stuff. Please stick with me, because this is really important to be discussed. Like what is the exact purpose of painkiller? I don't understand still now. Like because pain is a protective mechanism. Pain is letting your brain understand that something which is not okay with your body is happening in a given area. Like when you overstrain something, there is a kind of tendon tear, or there's a kind of overstretching of a muscle. Pain occurs because of that local accumulation of like histamine and bradykinin. We all read about it, right, like in the physiology. So this histamines and bradykinins, they all aggregate, and if there is any kind of tear or something, even platelets and fibrin depositing factors and everything accumulate and try to repair that area. And when there is sensation of pain, you generally stop yourself from exerting on that part, and you give it the necessary rest. And when it becomes better, and that means when the body has healed itself to a proper extent, the pain will be absolutely gone, and you can resume back to your normalcy, right? But why the hell did painkiller come in between? I don't understand. Like if the pain is really unbearable, yeah, you can take one, but what is the exact reason of taking them without any proper solid reason? When a person is suffering with pain, that means something is there, something is happening in the internal physiological system that needs to be answered. Like why is a person getting that continuous pain? That means there is internal damage occurring which needs to be focused upon, but instead it is being masked by giving painkillers unnecessarily, which is putting an extra load on liver as well as kidneys, because these two organs are something which bear a lot of stuff. Like they are called some kind of dumping yards, right? Like liver generally get helps you in getting rid of the toxins which you get through your food, whereas kidneys purify your blood, right? So these are the two organs, they get so much stressed out and so much damaged, and that is the reason of this increased dialysis centers and increased cases of chronic kidney failures and fatty liver now, if you ask me. And because of the underlying endocrine dysfunctions we are seeing, getting to see day by day, because of this inappropriate use of these painkillers, which needs to be exactly understood by the patients. Of course, it's not easy for them because they're not aware of that, but the physicians themselves should understand that why they are in the first place prescribing painkillers to such a large extent. And it is our duty as homeopathic physicians as well to make people understand as much as possible as we can. First we understand ourselves, like why we are prescribing and why we are against that. Like we need to have a solid knowledge of physiology. That is the reason I generally tend to advise my juniors, or say like who are aspiring to become really good physicians, like who are freshers or beginners, get a good grip of subject, because once you are really thorough with the subject, you can question them with the valid points and they don't have really answers. Like I'm not against allopaths, but I mean, their approach is a bit problematic, which we needs to be, questioned, of course. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and a kind of discussion I wanted to have in this podcast. So hope this podcast was helpful. From now onwards, I would like to have this a kind of lively discussion as well. So that's the reason I just wanted to have it a bit lengthy. Of course, I hope you got some really good insights. So hope this podcast was helpful. If so, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Till then, bye bye and have a great day, guys.